of Monday, May 18th order, where we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Andrew, can we have a roll call, please?
Rick Gunyon.
Present.
Mike Reeder.
Present.
Joe Root.
Present.
Kent Brewer.
Present.
Mike Kelly.
Present. The minutes of the last meeting.
I've got one question for
Okay.
Andrew. Under the wastewater expansion, says in the minutes, Bob Holden asked the notice of award to be signed by Mike Kelly and sent to Bowen Engineering. Did we vote on that?
No, it didn't need to be voted on because we did the vote on the meeting before. This
This was
was
just the document that we,
just to let them know and make it official for them. That's my recollection of it.
yes.
I was pretty sure we voted to have you sign it. But
Yeah, it was just, we didn't have the document that night, I believe.
But I was thinking at this meeting here, once Bob Holden asked that, there was a motion and then a second, and we voted to move forward with the notice of the award, is the way I remember the meeting going.
There was some question about procedural, I think, or there was something that happened and we decided.
I think the question that we were having was, is this the contract that we're signing?
That's right, that's what it
And
was.
it was not the contract that we were signing, it was just making it official that we were giving them the notice of award that we were sending to them.
So we approved their award of the bid a couple of meetings ago. And so that's just telling them that we approved their bid.
Yeah, they hadn't been notified yet. And then they were notified after the last meeting.
Any other questions?
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
Kent moves to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second, Mike Reeder. Roll call.
Rick Gunyon.
Aye.
Joe Root.
Aye.
Mike Reeder.
Aye.
Kent Brewer.
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. General Manager, we will have the department updates. And then if there's any managers that need to come in, we'll bring them in to explain more.
Just do it from here?
Go to the microphone.
Oh, I gotta steal your microphone.
Yeah,
Mike.
still is.
Okay, just a few things tonight. The substation, Burlington subs is all back up, all the switching was done, no problems. So that's up and going, we're past that hurdle. Another thing that Andrew Lanham and I have another conversation with Frito-Lay tomorrow about the water contract that we're dealing with in a 90-day period from the notification. We've had 2 other meetings with them. We have one tomorrow. Everything's going really well, probably better than could be expected. Sorry.
Steam it up.
Yeah. So that's, like I said, that's going better than probably anybody could hope for at this point in time.
What time is your meeting tomorrow?
Noon.
Okay. He sent me an email asking for some.
Yeah, I talked to him about 6 o'clock. He said that he had reached out to you, but our meeting's at noon tomorrow.
I sent it after I was home.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
just needed to know before noon. Then.
Okay, yes. Things are blistering. One of the things I had Andrew put this document in everybody's packet, and that is something that Stacy and I have talked about. Had a brief conversation with Ken about it last week as well. According to the governor, we can start doing disconnects again on June 5th. And we're bouncing between 350 and 400 disconnects right now. This document is something that has been used in the past. And what they do is they take anything that's past due and get an average of the past due amount And then if they agree, well, they're gonna have to agree to it. They have to pay that amount of money plus their monthly bill to stay connected. And right now, we can do it out to 3 months. And I didn't know if it's something that we want to discuss and take out longer because of the situation or what we may want to do.
Well, bottom line, after we talked about it, would be that, we take it, the first thought was at least take it till the end of the year,
Okay,
which would be 6 months.
6 months.
Really, and that gives, all of them that are behind 6 months, you know,
Right.
so you'd average whatever
Right.
into the 6 months, and which would make it, what I want to say, a smaller payment for them to come up with
Correct.
along with their thing. Was one of my first thoughts with it versus doing it in a 3-month period.
Right, because people are still gonna be struggling and they're behind, they're already far enough behind. Let's do what we can to simplify things for them a little bit. I mean, I don't have no problem with that, but that's something that we're gonna have to get guidance from the board on.
Well, and, you know, I think right now we need to wait and just see what the governor, what actually comes out from their office.
Well, it was-
Directives.
It was actually supposed to be this month, towards the end of this month, and then they postponed it until June 4th. So they gave it's about another 2 weeks, so I don't know if it's gonna get extended or not, but right now that's what the plan was, or is.
I watched him today and there's gonna be changes made this
Oh,
Friday.
are there?
Several
Okay,
changes, that he said has been brought to his attention and they're gonna be adjusting things this
Oh, okay.
Friday.
okay,
And some of the topic was utility disconnects. And the other topic is something that we'll talk about in a little while, is the IURC
right,
with Duke and IPL.
right. I was gonna bring that up too, to get that cleared out for people as well, from one of the
And
situations.
so I think he's gonna make some statements this week here that's gonna, you know, change some of those things there.
Okay, okay,
It seems to me that the important thing that we need to do is, we need to probably make sure people know that that is coming, that the disconnects are coming. We don't know exactly when,
right,
depending on what the government tells us we can do and not do. And that we're going to kind of arrange some kind of a payment plan for them,
right.
but encourage them to go ahead and start getting it done. I mean,
You would think, but yes, that's exactly what we need to do. And actually, we have put on the bills, and if it changes, we'll have to change it with the bill that we can start doing them on June 5th. Doesn't mean that we will, but we can start doing them on June 5th. Those have been going out for the last week, but if we have to change that, then we change it and we go back on it, which is fine. So, okay, we'll play that by ear through Friday and see what we come up with.
I kind of agree with Ken. I think we should give them at least 6 months, as long as they're actively trying to cure the problem. Now, people that say, I'm just not paying, then, you know, I'll take other action. But
Right,
I think as long as we have someone making a genuine effort to catch up, I think we should work with them 100%.
okay, that's fine.
I'm gonna just ask Stacy if she has any comments that she
Okay.
wants to bring up. Stacy, you have any additional you want to talk about?
Just to explain it a little more in depth, so what happens is in this payment plan program, it takes all of their past due bills that we select and pulls it from their utility bill and takes it into what they call the payment plan program, which is we have different codes we have to use, and so all utility bills are in code 63, and this moves it all into code 45. So if we look at the customer's account, once it's moved to the payment plan program, it would not show that they have any bills due. So we have to track the payment plan separately. And so it does take all the past due bills that we take, and like Todd said, we put in the number of months that we want it divided by, and it will come up with a monthly payment. The customer is then required to make that monthly payment along with their current bill. So the first month, they only have to make the payment plan because we include the current month bill in with the payment plan. So they only have to make the payment plan amount unless you guys want us to do that differently and say, okay, they have to pay the current bill plus an average of the previous ones. And so then if they would fault on making a payment by their due date, then what happens is, in order to get turned back on, they have to pay the full amount in full upfront to get turned back on. Is how we do it currently.
So that's back to one of the things that Joe was mentioning, as long as they're making an honest effort to get it done, then that's fine, but if they don't, then they get hit with a big bill.
Do they come on site to have this all explained to them and?
Yes, so the paper that Todd put in your packet is not actually part of that payment plan. It's actually a document that we've had drawn up that the customer has to sign and someone in the office has to sign, an authorized person in the office and the customer. That way the customer, we have a signed copy that says the customer has been given a copy of it along with the payment plan printout out of the system, and it also prints payment coupons for them so that they can keep track for themselves or send a coupon in with their payment, because it will not show up on their utility bill. And that is something that we explain to the customer, but some customers still don't understand that it's a payment in addition to their bill. So when they get their bill, they have to pay that plus in addition. So this form that was put in your packet, we put all the specifics on there. They have to sign it, and then we give them a signed copy. So then if they do fault on payment, we do have a legal copy that says, yes, we are able to disconnect their service, and we can disconnect the service on any service that their name is attached to. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, like if they move in the process and they owed bills on an old property, but now they're at a new property, we can disconnect the new property to collect on the old. And then also if they then don't pay, we can take them to a small claims court.
Okay.
My personal thought is it's too harsh to expect someone to make every payment without exception or the bills due in full. I think we need to have some allowance there built in. I don't know what that is, but to me, it's a good faith effort. Like Joe mentioned, it's not a rigid, you're in, you're out.
To me, this is the good faith effort, because they're more than 2 months behind before they get a disconnect anyway. So this would be a good faith effort to get it averaged out, to make their payments smaller. Otherwise, we're just gonna be chasing people from now until eternity, right?
So can you show us in our next meeting what the customer receives from the utilities to clearly inform them that they are in arrears and this is the amount of money they owe and whatever communication they're gonna get?
Yeah, we can.
I can't make heads and tails of all the discussion points, so.
Okay, yeah, we can, that's fine. We can print off a coupon book and everything.
I can go, on Wednesday when I'm back in the office, I can go into our test environment and pull one of these customers that are a few months behind that we have on our disconnect list. I can pull it in and give you an exact example of what it would look like. If you don't go with this payment plan in the way it's set up, and you're saying to be lenient, the only thing I ask is that you as a board come up with your stipulations of what you consider to be lenient and what you expect from the customer, so that we can give the customer some written documentation from you guys saying what we can and can't do, just because we want to make sure that everyone's being treated the same, and that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
If we can get the document you currently envision, it'd be very easy for us to strike out a couple areas and make some edits to give a little more forbearance versus us writing something up from scratch.
The only problem with not going with the payment plan option that we have here, if we do something a little bit different than that, is that we will have a harder time tracking it. In the disconnect process, it will make it a little more difficult as far as like as you say, striking through things, we can't manually go in and change it. So we'll just have to look at a couple different options.
Stacy, let's just do a mock customer off your test server. And then we can all see what it would look like. And then we'll have a better idea of the whole process and see. There may be, I don't want to reinvent the wheel here, because if this process works, if maybe we have to take it longer time if we want to make sure that we get the bottom line is we want to get the money. I mean, that's the bottom line. So
Well, I like Ken's idea of going out to 6 months versus 3. And again, if you're talking 3 months back, you're talking somebody's probably 450 behind. You're probably talking $450 behind. So you divide that out by 6, that's better than 3. I can't see going any longer than that though, because I think what it is, we won't have our money.
I agree.
So let's just,
Stacy, could you, send us an email on, the amount, the estimated amount that is past due, total dollar amount of all the utilities that's past due? Send an email with that.
I would like to see this taken care of before the end of the year, because if we don't, it'll be a nightmare trying to carry this over to 2021.
I don't think she heard me, Ken.
We
Stacy?
did.
she did.
Okay.
He was right.
Okay,
Is that it on that part?
let's move on to the next subject.
Okay, Ken briefly mentioned it, and I was gonna bring it up, that there was a report out last week, TV 18, Fox 59, everybody had it on there, where PSI and Duke are petitioning the IURC to raise their rates so that they can recoup lost revenue. And we've actually had people at the billing, or come into the billing office, not come into the billing office, but went to the drive up and asked if we were gonna be doing that. And took it, upon myself to tell them that no, we will not be doing any petitioning to anybody to raise rates. But I wanted to bring it up to the board to let you know that question was asked of us, or about to us, if we were gonna be considering doing that. And like I said, the answer to me right now is no, but I just wanna let you guys know, be aware of the decision.
Has IMPA taken a position on that?
No, IFO is not, because they're not gonna go after anything. What they did say is that they would probably be implementing a tracker factor, just like what we've had in the past, but they are not going to look to adjust rates or anything at this time, no. What they are doing is looking to decrease, they're going to more renewable energy, which is cheaper than their coal and everything, so that's what they're trying to do, is buy a more portfolio of renewable energy at this time. That's about it.
Okay, well, you've got one more. We're gonna talk about this. We've got the electric water and retirement in this.
Oh, okay, should we gonna do it now or in a little bit?
Let's do it right now. Okay, I'll lead, or Joe and I will lead on this. Joe and I are your representatives on the pension board. We met with the pension board sometime a little over a month ago, almost 2 months ago, because it all started, I think, Joe, when we were right at, anyway, 2 months ago, probably. They were not happy with the idea that the full retirement is 65 rather than 60. We told them, this agreement, or this is the original document where it does say 65 is the age of retirement.
Mm-hmm.
They asked that if they could have it checked to see what the financial ramifications would be if they moved from 65 to 60. Is that kind of summary, Joe?
Yeah.
We told them, yeah, you can do that. You can have that checked. But one, you have to pay for it through the pension board, which they did, by the way. And two, that it has to be the only way it would happen is if the full board were to agree that it could happen, and we would, and now you want to tell what the outcome of the new study was?
Yeah, let me grab it, Mike.
I guess I got a quick question on that is, when you say they paid out of the pension board, whose money is that in the pension board that they spent?
That come out of their funds,
But in that funds, that is money that we, the USB, has put into there. So in my opinion, first thought on it was when they asked, the question should have been brought to this board prior to going to Nyhart and spending $500, $2,000, or whatever was spent. And then this board could have said, yeah, I'll move forward and give us a recommendation, or we could have turned around and said, no. And that time would have been non-wasted, non-money spent, is the way I look at that on that end of it. Because that money is, of that money, 5% is out of their checks. Close to 18% is what we're paying out of checks, plus another $100,000 a year. We have, right now, on the numbers that I ran today, let's see here. In a 12-month period, going off of the first 3 months this year here on water, we're gonna put $304,555 in the water's pension. Just the utility board is. Their 5% goes on, out of their pay goes in there, that's on top of that. These numbers do not include the billing office. We are gonna spend $403,694 into the electric to pension. That doesn't count the billing office. That's a total of $708,000. And if we were in a 10-year plan to get this pension to, say, 100% funded, and with this plan, by changing it from 65 to 60, adds 4 more years, it's gonna be $3 million that the ratepayers are gonna have to cough up. There's a reason their pension plan got in the position it got into, and one of them, there's several reasons, but one of them was retired at 60. And so there's no way I can sit on here and support the ratepayers paying an additional $3 million so that the pension plan goes from 65 to 60.
but I think that's what we wanted to find out, how much more it was gonna cost.
Do we know what the study cost?
About $5,000.
$5,000? Okay. So what's the bottom line?
I think Kent just said the bottom line.
No, if we were to go from 65 to 60,
Yeah,
what's the impact on the
about four more years.
4 more years?
Yeah.
About $3 million, okay?
Yeah. But like I said, he just summed it up right there.
Okay. I didn't know if you had something different.
No,
Okay.
no.
Ken, I want to thank you for that because I made phone calls trying to get that information and was not able to get answers in the way you presented it.
I got it off of January, February, and March's pension payments that we've made so far off of all of our expenses for the first 3 months. That doesn't count, what we've done. This pension plan that we set up on to get them, 2 years ago, if we wouldn't have done nothing, they wouldn't have a pension at all.
Oh, and I agree.
No pension at all. I mean, we were on the state's call list
Mm-hmm.
with very few people else in the whole state of Indiana, and the state was gonna take this thing over. And so we as a board stepped up. Nyhart, is that the name?
Yeah.
Nyhart asked them to get us this plan, and this is the plan they came up with for us to do it. Well, we stepped up as a board and said, we're gonna contribute $100,000 every year to get this thing funded. And, you know, I'm just,
And we got the city.
yeah, the city's paying half
Council.
of that. City council's paying half of that. And so, we would have saved $5,000 if this conversation would have happened first and not said for Nyhart to look at it because,
Well, let me ask you this, before any more pension boards are held, do we have to get permission from this board to have the pension board discussions? Because that'll be the next question that comes back to us.
no, they can have discussions, but once it starts spending money,
Then it comes here.
right,
Okay,
with it.
okay.
I mean, it's,
We can do that, but that isn't what when we were doing this, we were under the impression that the pension board had the ability, because they paid for the other things that they do, I forget, there's been some other things they've had to pay for.
They pay for when somebody's gonna retire and stuff, they pay for that, to have those numbers ran, once they turn into retirement papers.
Right.
But if somebody just wants their numbers, they
They
have
have
to
to
pay,
pay.
they have to pay for that, yes.
And if we made a mistake, I apologize for that, but we thought we were doing what we were supposed to do.
I don't call it a mistake. I mean, obviously it cost the pension fund $5,000
I
to
think,
have this ran, and $5,000 in that particular fund is very substantial percentage of it.
another one of the things is we had no idea what it was gonna cost to run that.
And make it even clearer is Mike and I only have half a vote. We each have half a vote and they can outvote us anytime they want to. But then it comes back to us here and we can control the spending, but I don't know the ramifications if we could stop them from doing that.
So,
That might be a question for Alicia. I don't know if we can even stop them if they vote to do something.
Depends on what the pension plan says, and I don't know off the top of my head what that says.
I mean, the pension plan, that thing was set up for a 5% return on the money. First year, we were around a 9%.
Correct.
Last year, it was around an 18%.
I thought it was close to 19.
Okay, I call it 19, okay. So if you turn around and this year here, let's just say we have a 0.
Mhm. Which is a
You
good
know,
possibility.
We're
or less.
still running at an 8%.
Right.
Which means we're 3% ahead of what the 10-year goal to get it to 100% funded. And, we can talk all night on it, I'll make a motion that we do not change the pension age from 65 to 60.
I would like to second that motion, and my reasoning is I think it would be irresponsible for this board to revert back to a retirement age of 60, given the impact that will have to not only pension income of those persons that might retire early, but they won't be paying into the fund were they to continue working. And I think this is a case where we have to look out for the good of the many, and there may be a few people that are not happy, and I certainly understand that. But from where we've come from 3 years ago, pulling this out of the dark side and getting it back where it's doable in a 10-year period, I think the only responsible thing to do is to keep it at 65 as the plan that we had in front of us says. So I second that motion.
would there be any other discussion? I mean, we've had a lot of discussion, but is there any more discussion needed?
I think one thing might be mentioned also is every member of the pension board got a copy of what Mike showed right there. So it's not like their comment was we didn't know. So.
Was that a comment of the pension board or employees?
The employees that are on the pension board.
Both. And employees too.
All right, roll call.
Joe Root,
Aye.
Mike Reeder,
Aye.
Rick Gunion,
Aye.
Kent Brewer,
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. Motion passes that we will not change anything about the pension board. I think that did get you.
I do have one thing,
Uh-huh.
if I may. A few weeks ago, we talked about, we had a near miss with a excavation gas line situation.
Yes.
And I worked on a document.
Yes.
Can you give us a brief update on where that stands? Are we gonna have something come before the board for
Yes,
approval, or?
we will. I'll bring it to the next meeting, Rick, with this adjusted schedule and getting everything laid out. It's been a pain, but we are working on it.
Well, all right.
And there's not gonna be really much change,
Okay,
if any, to it, but
Okay.
I will, bring something to the next meeting.
okay. And then in that light, that was with regard to, 811 processes, call
Right.
before you dig checklist,
Right.
to try to error-proof our work that we do
Right.
at a site that's been marked or located. Once we get that approved, there's two other topics in arrears that we've talked about. One being the high visibility workwear
Mhm.
that we ought to require of our employees when they're on the job. And I was interesting, I have a photograph of two of our meter readers, one electric, one water, walking down Williams Road side by side. One of them's in high visibility wear and one of them's in, looks like a gardener.
Okay.
And it's striking how different they look, how the appearance jumps out at you. So
Okay.
I'm willing to work on that next round of documents, if you will.
Okay.
But I do want to hold off till we get one of them through the hopper.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, any
Yep.
other things for Todd? Legal briefs, well, wait a minute, claims, I guess, first. Claims. You've had an opportunity to see the claims, and
I make a motion, we approve the claims.
motion to approve claims by Mike Reeder and a second by
I'll second.
Rick. Roll call.
Joe Root,
Aye.
Rick Gunion,
Aye.
Mike Reeder,
Aye.
Kent Brewer,
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. All right, now your turn, Alicia.
Last meeting, Mike Beck asked for a resolution recommending an amendment to the wastewater admissibility standards per item's recommendation. I have prepared that for this meeting. Essentially, it basically does exactly what Mike Beck, put out last week. I copied and pasted pretty much. But it does reference the, statutory authority for the board to recommend the amendment, and also references that IDEM and the EPA are recommending this.
I only have one question.
Mhm.
How do we change a local ordinance in the case of item 1W, which says a chemical element value be set by per EPA or IDEM requirements?
That's what's in there now, it just has additional language. So we just erased some of the language. I don't know if I've got the actual sheet, but that's what was in there before. So
Okay.
we're just eliminating, I think there's another sentence after that that provides further explanation, but basically it would just, if I was looking at this ordinance, I would just have to go look at the IDEM requirement, and then that would be what it would be.
Okay, so we're not concerned if IDEM and EPA are the same or different, or if they changed mid-year or?
I just used what Mike Beck provided, which was from IDEM.
Okay.
So that's what his recommendations were. I don't have any idea about the technical specifications of whatever that one is. I don't even know how to say it. So that said, I'm gonna go with what the statute,
It's
what the
written as
ordinance.
intended.
Mhm. Yep.
This resolution number would be 2020-05-18-01. Mike, do you have anything else you want to add to this since you're on? Mike Beck? You're muted.
How about that? means is that at the time the local city ordinance is produced, there is not a limit that's been promulgated by EPA.
Okay,
So that protects us in case it happens to be promulgated. It comes along and they let us know, then it'll be in effect until we can actually amend the ordinance to say that.
Very good. So it's a placeholder in effect.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? A motion to approve 2020-05-18-01.
I'll make that motion.
Joe Root makes the motion, a second.
Second.
Second, Mike Reeder. Roll call.
Rick Gunion,
aye.
Mike Reeder,
Aye.
Joe Root,
Aye.
Ken Brewer,
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. Anything else, Commissioner?
The only other thing is I've been working on reviewing the wastewater treatment expansion contract. The standard terms, just to give you an idea of what I've been working with, were 65 pages of single-spaced font. So it took me a little while to get through. I will be sending Mike Kelly an email with all of my comments about that. There weren't very many things that I'd recommend we change. Most of it's standard language. But I do want to point out a couple of things to the board. I'm not going to do it tonight because there are several comments, but just know that I have reviewed it and I will get that email out hopefully tomorrow.
I've got,
Let's jump to new.
go ahead.
Go ahead, whatever you've
No,
got.
I've got a question for Todd
Okay,
on the claims.
Todd, question for
Mhm.
claims.
Under the utility service board, it's got our the Barnes and Thornburg, and it's, we're working on water rates. And that one is, why is that not under
Water, there, for some reason, Ken, some of the bills will come in and from lawyer fees are coming out of USB because we had put all lawyer fees under, or attorney fees into the USB. And I had that on water first and it got transferred to Andrew, but we can't go back and, we can make an adjustment, but we could put in the budget to take all attorney fees out of the USB's budget. But I agree with you. I think it should be coming out of water.
Well, because that will be a refundable expense once the SRF is approved.
Right.
And that will be very hard to turn around and say 5,000 or 8,000 goes back into USB, right, and the rest of this goes back into water.
We'll just set it up to do a claim and transfer it back into there from water.
Okay.
Okay?
Got that, Andrew?
Do you want,
I think anything related to the water rate increases
right,
should all go through the water.
do you want it to be, do you want to set up a transfer? Or do you want me to just cancel the invoice, cancel the purchase order, and rerun it through?
Oh, is that in the
As-
claims tonight?
It is in the claims
Oh,
tonight,
okay.
yes.
What's easiest for you? You tell us what the easiest is to
I
do.
mean, it would either be Becky setting up a transfer. No, I guess it would be one of us setting up a transfer out of water into USB for that, it'd be Becky. Or it would just be me canceling invoice purchase order and Becky writing a new claim. Or it'd be a change order and I can take it out of 601, I think. I mean, it's whatever you want. It would be either pay the check now and then see another claim next week, moving the money. Or taking the amendment or adjustment into consideration with these that you signed and knowing that it is going to change from 580 to 601.
That sounds to be the simplest to me, wouldn't you think?
It stays in my office.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, looking at them, I mean, this month here, we had a pretty hefty, health insurance claim. And $3,000 USB to the utility board, and you got $3,000 if it continues to rack up like that. And I think when the SRF's done, the transfer of the funds when you do your repayment back is gonna be a lot cleaner
Agreed. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and easier to be done that way then.
I can do that.
Anything else? Okay, let's go to the old business section. And any other old business that I don't have that we want to bring up before we turn this over to Rick for his part on the lagoon. All right, Rick, we're ready for lagoons.
I got one thing
Okay,
before Rick goes on that, because we'll probably close with that. We are receiving a tremendous amount of what I want to say unexplained expenses to Reedy Financial. And what I would like for this board to do would be to give Todd the authority to contact Reedy. And prior to any work that they have to do, they have his authorization. And I believe that will turn around and take us out of the problem that we had with Wessler's just contacting them and asking them to do this and do this, and then then the bill gets sent to us. The other thing is all of our Reedy bills go to the mayor. And I would like for Todd to check with Caitlin or Gary Smith from Reedy, and we have what our Reedy bills are come to us. Because when I get them to look at them and you get them, I get them, and Todd, and we're looking at them, and I mean, you might have this work here, and then you got to decide for ours is $680. But when you look at the very bottom, it might be a $10,000 bill. And it's becoming very confusing to go from. We got one from Reedy about a electric bond lookover or something.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Right, that was one of the last ones we got. And so, what's Reedy doing looking at, so I believe we need to have a little more, we're getting these Reedy bills, and then when I call Todd or Andrew, we're like, well,
yeah. What happens on the Reedy bills, Reedy bill is sent to the mayor's office. It has USB stuff on it. It has
RDC.
RDC on it. It has
City on
city something else on it. You have, and then sometimes when you read what it's been done, it's still hard to tell whose bill it is.
Barnes
So,
and Thornburg is the same way. It goes to the mayor. Barnes and Thornburg. Yeah.
I think we should contact Reedy, tell them straight up that we are paying our bill. We want invoiced separately. If they don't want to do that, we can look for somebody else.
we are.
we are after we get past the wastewater treatment plant.
But I don't think this should be just Reedy. I think it should be any vendor
Yeah.
that does business with us. They should bill us directly and give us a separate bill.
Are you gonna put that in the form of a motion, Kent?
Yeah, I will make a motion that let me see, how do I want to make the motion? Reedy only, or do we want to make it to all
Any
outside vendors?
I would think all outside vendors, that's just my opinion, we should get itemized bills. We know what we're getting.
I'll make a motion that all outside vendors, i.e. Reedy, Barnes and Thornburg, have Todd's, the general manager's authority before they do any work.
I'll second that motion.
And that's effective Immediately.
today.
Okay.
Once Todd, Mark can talk to them and can get it taken care of. You know, it goes back and sorry, Rick, taking a little bit of your time here, but, you know, we haven't met for 6 weeks, so we've got 6 hours.
No, I would say.
But, you know, some of you have been involved in the emails that I've had with Westlers, from Westlers coming in. You know, Todd can tell you that, you know, I went straight to the point, which everybody knows that's how I'm gonna deal with it. You know, it come down to when one of their employees contacted Reedy about the rate increase and, you know, going over the 27 million and everything else, you know, well, they done that upon themselves. So my point back to them was, who's gonna pay this bill? Well, when we got the bill, which was $1,280 some, I think, I brought it up to them and I was told, you know, to send that bill down there to them. But, you know, obviously the more I thought about it and everything else, you know, we don't have no policy towards that. So now, you know, I believe, and that's why I brought up about us setting a policy that, you know, we'll pay the $1,200 and that shame on us on that end of it. And now, you know, from this time forward, you know, we won't. I don't, you know, and before we really set the bill, I was gonna bring that up in here for a discussion with the board to turn around and say, what's your thoughts on it, you know? I mean, I've talked with Todd about it and decided, you know, why not go this route? And we'll do the $1,200 bill on that we got from them, but from this day forward, that shouldn't happen to protect ourselves.
Okay, so the motion is that Todd approves all contacts with outside vendors, basically, and we encourage, but you didn't say anything about whether they encourage or having them bill directly to USB in your motion.
I'll amend it that they all be billed directly to the USB also.
I have one clarification. I could take it to mean that in Todd approving contracts with outside vendors, there's 2 parts of that we've not talked about. Prior to the work being initiated and approved in writing, and I would like both of those put into this, so we have a paper trail that on this date, Todd approved this work, and there's a piece of paper that says that. It's not just a phone call. Does that make sense? Okay.
All right, let's see, let's summarize here. Outside vendors have to be approved in writing by Todd before any work is done. And then also any invoices or billings that come from that outside work are to be sent to the USB and not just city general. Does that summarize it?
I agree with what you said. I think that ought to be in the form of a letter drafted by Todd
Okay,
and sent out, not just, as Rick says, a phone call telling them that. And
Well, if we're gonna draft a letter, then the letter Todd can sign it, but the letter should come from us.
I got no problem with that either.
That the USB, this is our change of our policy in here, and then Todd, as general manager, can send it out.
well, since I don't want a whole bunch of red on my paper again, Alicia, would you draft that letter in for Todd, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Remind me of my high school days, that day, Alicia.
Sorry.
No, thank you, I appreciate it, you made it sound much better. When we really want to get them, know we'll have Kent write the letter, I know. Okay, I have that motion and we have a second, and now we're ready to vote.
Rick Gagnon.
Aye.
Mike Reeder.
Aye.
Joe Root.
Aye.
Kent Brewer.
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. All right, now Rick, we're ready.
Okay, are we good, technology people?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. So if it pleases the board, there's a little bit of an unusual topic here tonight. I'd like to provide the board a update on the stormwater lagoons, also known as the Frankfurt lagoons. And I have a bit of a PowerPoint here to help me get through this. Part of this should be a review. Part of this is aimed to help communicate to the public in general on where we are and where we're going. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to ask for board approval to name me as the liaison to the lagoons and allow me to move this topic forward. And I would entertain any questions along the way. So with that, the property on which the lagoons are situated are classified as a wetlands according to Indiana geography. The total area of that site is 64 acres. The property owner is the city of Frankfurt. And the property management is the City of Frankfurt Utility Service Board. That's per Indiana code designated as such. The reason for that is we do use the lagoons as a portion of our stormwater management control system. So therefore, the utility board is in charge of that infrastructure. The business purpose of the lagoons is for stormwater management. And of course, we know there's two smaller ponds there that act as settling ponds, and there's a larger retention pond that is for that purpose, that it retains large rain events, large amounts of water that we would have, such as recently, and then it distributes that in a slower rate to the groundwater and downstream. Meanwhile, besides the business purpose of stormwater collection, this site also provides a diverse set of amenities, including fishing from the bank fishing, the natural wetlands to the north, nature and wildlife viewing, photography, walking paths, nature outings for the elderly, primarily Wesley Manor, but also other folks that get on a bus and want to tour through there. And then lastly, there are educational opportunities for our local youth that sometimes have been taken advantage of in the past, and we think in the future, and that includes things like Boys Club and Girls Club and Boy Scouts and so forth, so on. So geographically, there's a depiction of the site with, again, on the left, the business purpose, stormwater collection and management, and then the community amenities listed on the right. Took a quick look at the 5-year donation history from the public. And the background of that is for many, many years, members of the public have donated funds for certain purposes. Sometimes they're designated, for example, for a bench. Other times they're not designated specifically, but just donated to the lagoons. But all toward the amenity side. I mean, no one's donating money to help us pay for the electric bill to pump water, for example. And I want to thank our city clerk treasurer office, Wanda Mitchell, and also Joe Root for helping get these numbers together. Thank you both. One interesting fact is there's a group of folks known as birders that have documented 156 different bird species at lagoons. And that's posted on the internet at that site. And that site kind of looks like this. So it gives a listing of the species, the date and time, and who found it, and a whole lot of other interesting stuff to people who call themselves birders. And this gets to the fact that people who enjoy the lagoons are not just Frankfurt residents, they're not just Frankfurt utility customers. They're people from all over north central Indiana. They come here specifically for the lagoons and the nature that's present there. In conducting a site assessment 2 weeks ago during our closure, I came up with two significant findings. The first, there is no signage in place to notify the public about public use rules. From that, the potential consequences include safety hazards and financial liability hazards. Public use rules are things like no boating, no swimming, no trapping, no hunting, things such as that. The signage is pretty simple. This is what we have. And by the way, that sign at the bottom is technically correct. I won't go into the technical details, but because the waters in these lagoons do make their way to a public stream to the north, that gives the DNR the responsibility of enforcing the state fishing license requirement on this site. It's not something we have anything to do with, nor do they ask our permission. It's just the way the waters flow. DNR has that oversight and do check on occasion for fishing licenses. And of course, that in itself is a big topic. For example, if you're below the age of 18, you do not need a fishing license, and on and on. So we won't go into all that. But there has been questions from local citizens as to why the utility board or the mayor is requiring fishing licenses there. And it's not us, it's DNR. So the future state would be the signage would get upgraded to include what I spoke about earlier, safety hazards, what you can and cannot do, and so forth. And I'll consult with the board in developing that list if this is the way we want to go. The other significant finding during the closure recently is the wetland observation balcony is dangerous. And there's a whole list of things there that are gaps, let's say, in a safe balcony. But if you can envision this photograph, you see there's a balcony that's about 30 or 35 feet above the ground level, overlooking the north wetlands. There are no rails underneath the top rail, so a small child could slip out of there and would be a significant event. It's comprised of 2x4 construction, treated 2x4 construction that looks to be maybe 10 years old or older. And if you can look at right the center of this segment of the top rail, you see the top rail is comprised of two boards, one vertical, one horizontal. Both of them have a joint or a segment in the construction of this top rail within 3 inches of each other. So the strength of that is pretty minimal. My recommendations from those two findings are, I believe we need to install temporary signage regarding the site rules, and we need to block access to the balcony until we can reconstruct it. There are, I'm gonna let you look at this, there are some controversial friction points or controversies at this site. Recently, there seems to be a group of people who feel like it's a right that they talk about these lagoons being our lagoons, and they're not happy that we've closed it. I remain convinced we did the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, but convincing them of that has been unsuccessful, put it that way. But nonetheless, some people think it's their lagoons, and we're just standing in their way of enjoying the site. There are outspoken members of the public that do not understand the concept of decision ownership, and they have complained to Mayor Sheets, city councilors, and others. And I would just say this, that the most vocal of the social media activists have not really helped their cause. In fact, presuming we move forward with what I'm recommending here, we're doing this in spite of the backlash and negative comments that we've seen. And my intention is to continue to do that if you so choose to make this better for everyone. The future use of the 30-acre wetland at the north remains, I would say, very controversial. There's a small group of pro-fishing people that are convinced, and they continue to challenge the use as a wetland, and their opinion is it needs to be filled with water, and we need to put fish in it and fish. However, and I won't go in detail, based on all the available information I have collected over the past 3 weeks, this area will need to continue to be a wetland, and we'll go into more detail down the road if we authorize my being the point person on this. There is a very solid reasoning or rationale or explanation, and it's very practical, has to do with expenses and ongoing sustainability, as well as nature. And lastly, I would say, let's not be mistaken here. The rules for this site, like many other sites, we have to put rules in place for the benefit of the many, but we will also expect, as in most cases, a few people will refuse to comply with the rules. So we can expect enforcement actions will be necessary in the future, and I think that's the nature of the beast. So just understand that. The proposed next steps, and I'm going to make the argument that the USB should proactively manage the site for the benefit of the community. I think one way to achieve that end, and what I'm asking for here, is for the board to authorize me to be the board liaison to represent this USB in leading site improvements. Now, importantly, I think that begins with a couple of outreach discussions with local user groups, people who are interested. And from that, I believe we need a phased and a multi-year improvement plan that serves diverse interests in the community. I don't like to move forward on anything without some kind of a plan that people can, like you, can look at and say, yeah, I buy into that plan. We don't want to just blindly blaze ahead and start doing stuff. I would anticipate consulting with local users, local user groups, those who like wildlife, those who like fishing, those who like nature and exercise and photography, other community leaders, and subject matter experts at the state and regional level. These would be from the DNR, the Division of Fish and Wildlife, Purdue University, Soil and Water Conservation District. There's a whole slew of people and expertise available that we would want to work with and kind of learn from and take away key points. And of course, any improvement plan, any element of that is subject to USB approval before we do it. And then lastly, another element of this would be, which would be necessary, is some kind of community outreach that I would want to coordinate, speaking with and networking with and listening to, that would then shift into a way to organize volunteers to help improve and maintain lagoons. And I want to put a bullet point on that. Over the past 20 years or so, that has been on again, off again. For many, many years, there have been volunteers anxious to help, go out and do things. We do have a volunteer authorization form we ask people to sign prior to volunteering, and that's for various reasons. The downside of that is we've had volunteers over time who have somehow shifted their mental model of this whole topic to where they really didn't think the USB had any brains, and they themselves, the volunteers, had felt that they were the ones in charge of this, and that has happened more than once, and I think it has to do with personalities more than anything. But I think we'll manage through that. I'm like you folks, I'm not one to be intimidated, and you can volunteer or not, but we're gonna move forward, is my thinking. And then lastly, there are sources of additional funding that would help the amenity side of this. They range from the Clinton County Community Foundation, North Central Health, Ducks Unlimited, State DNR, and on and on and on. And I think if we choose to go this path, what this plan may look like in 3 months' time or maybe 6 months' time, I think many of you would be amazed at what we can do out there for not a lot of investment. So with that, let me kind of wrap up here. Recently, at my request, Todd had PJ conduct a water sample test of each of the fishing ponds. And the bottom line, the good news is each of those ponds are well within the IDEM effluent limits. In particular, for fish to be healthy, you need a certain dissolved oxygen level, and we're well in that range as we are with everything else here. So we don't have any evidence of farm chemical pollution, the wrong, too much acid or alkaline pH, ammonia, contamination, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea here was we believe people are fishing and eating the fish, and we certainly didn't want to contribute any unhealthy fish being out there. So that's why we went ahead and conducted this before we came here to the board, and I appreciate PJ's work in that regard, but it was good news. We have, since the shutdown, had the Frankfort Police Department responded to a number of trespassers who decided to go fishing. Despite the fact it was closed, we do have security cameras in use, and they have been in use out there at that site for many years. I won't say more about that, but I would say part of our future plans is to improve and upgrade the security and safety of the site, and that's primarily the use of technology. And with that, I'll stop and see if what questions you have or what direction you'd like to go.
Rick, could you go back to the one of that has the map or the pictures of all three? That one will work.
Yes.
One of my concerns is the amount of traffic vehicular traffic that goes around the backside.
You mean the perimeter of the wetland area in the north? Okay.
It seems that area is the kind of trash and things that are left back there really indicate some almost probably illegal activity.
Oh, yeah.
And all through this, I've been bombarded with, we needed to open these so people would have a place to fish, they'd have a place to walk. And from my standpoint, there's actually almost no place to park in the back loop. And I think that we need to let people walk back there when we open, but I'm not sure that it's advantage to us to have people driving back there. So
My personal opinion is I 100% agree. When you look at the term wildlife zone or wildlife viewing area, you typically want to minimize motorized traffic to start with, noise, commotion. I do know that that's a good place to dump off your used car tires out of your pickup truck, because no one's gonna see you back there. Not that I've done that, but I've heard stories about it. And so, along that line, I did do a tour with Todd last week. If the board would so be inclined, it would not be significantly difficult to reuse some of our power poles we're having taken down and replaced and upgraded, our electric poles. Use our auger equipment on our trucks, put in a row of cut off telephone poles across there, allow for a maintenance access gate. And so we could construct our own barrier, if you will, and just cordon off that north perimeter if the board would so choose.
That's what I would.
As long as we was to leave it open for motorized wheelchair, that somebody could get through there to go around. I mean, that's what I would like to see.
Sure.
That's been discussed before, and that was brought before the board many years ago. And somehow or another, it seemed like that it never got finished. There have been temporary barriers put up. I like your idea, Rick, of putting something in the ground that somewhat substantial. They hook to our gate and pull it off from every now and then, so it'll have to be something pretty good size to be able to do that.
I can see a rail that they could chainsaw and cut those poles off right level with the ground. And, I mean,
Well, this is where our new security camera system comes in. So, we can look at maybe an initial solution, a short-term solution, maybe get us through the rest of the year, and maybe there's an argument to be made for something more permanent, like steel reinforced concrete risers or whatever. We do want to allow access for maintenance vehicles, so that if there's some trees that fall down or whatever else needs to be back there, we have to go get in there with our equipment. But I like the idea of that reverting to nature and not being maintained as a roadway.
With that being said, it might be necessary as with that balcony may not, that's on the very back side, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's actually located, if you look at the two ponds, it's near the center of the pond on the right.
Oh, okay.
It's about right there.
Isn't there something back in the back?
Yeah, cement.
There's cement, but there's no rack to it
that used to
anymore.
be the gate valve.
Right.
Okay.
But
And that's where we took the walkway out, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So there's some large artifacts that are in that area that you can't gain access to from the perimeter walking.
The other thing is from the very beginning, we were using the governor's plan to close this.
Right.
And we thought we were going to use the governor's plan to open it, which unless there's something new comes out Friday, that would be the 24th, if I believe.
Correct. I'm not
And-
sure the campgrounds are gonna be open Friday,
So
from what I've heard.
can we get this temporary signage and get some things that would allow us to open on the 24th if
Absolutely, yes.
everything goes correctly?
You know, seeing that, like Mike just said, I think that's part of some of the announcement. I don't think
Right.
campgrounds and that part of it's gonna get opened on the 24th.
They're not taking any reservations for this weekend right now.
Parks are though, right? The parks,
I don't know about that. I know the campgrounds are not.
did they change on the parks?
I don't think they're taking it.
I think we open with when that phase, whatever that phase is that we've been waiting on. We don't open any earlier than the phase that we close under a phase, we open under the phase
Phase 3.
phase 3.
And that's gonna be determined on Friday when the governor releases.
So
There'll
we
be
have,
some big changes.
we have a number of questions. One of them would be when we plan on opening the site. We don't have an answer to that right now. Let me ask this question. I have two recommendations here in this slide. could I ask for consensus agreement that we move forward on both those items? And I coordinate with Mr. Corey on executing that?
I think that's absolutely necessary,
Okay.
my opinion.
I'll make a motion that we allow Rick to be the liaison from the USB for the lagoons.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion, go.
I do have one, I'm in favor of the motion. My only thing is, are we gonna pay for the construction of the observation balcony? When this all started several years ago, those type of things were paid for out of the 50/50 donation fund. And
Which was the slide that he showed from the clerk treasurer's office.
In my opinion there, Joe, would be yes. Todd, do you remember, do we still have $2,500 in the USB budget for the lagoons?
I think so.
Because see, in the
It was
past,
either 15 or 25.
If I had my computer, I'd tell you.
yeah, but in the past, we always, would spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500 to have that company come in there and do the algae kill. And so that was in part of the,
If it's Bellinger's, I have not seen, they have not been used. Not in Tyler.
I'm not really sure who it is. Do you remember who it was?
I got it in my stuff here, but we have not used them in years.
I gave Rick an expense report that any purchase order that had the word lagoons, well, really lagoon, and I had it starred, so any word that had LAGOON in it. Any purchase order from 2016 to current, and there was not a single time where we paid anything like that.
So we're still reconstructing the actual expenses incurred for the lagoons for the past 5 years. Don't have anything I'm confident I can show you right now. I think to Joe's question, we're either at a situation where we invest money to block off that observation balcony so it cannot be accessed and because it's unsafe, or we invest money to make it safe. And
So that was gonna be my question from a financial standpoint. So right now, most anything like this, we pay out of stormwater. Obviously the electric bill and stuff is, that's a monthly fee. If we move forward with something like this, where we're more of an active maintaining, getting everything up to snuff, so to speak, should we create a separate fund similar to, other similar to other non-revenue generating, like the USB, or the billing office, myself. That way we can transfer money from stormwater, whatever, and have a more clear picture on the expenses. And the reason why I bring that up is in your presentation here, you alluded to outside funding sources where we could potentially get, grants or something.
correct.
If we get that and we receipt it into stormwater, is that gonna convolute our cash on hand? I mean, granted, it would get receipted in from, and it would get denoted, as in the receipt, where it came from, what it was for, but.
Andrew, I have a comment. It was decided by this board years ago, and it's voted on in our minutes, that all donations to the lagoons would be handled through the clerk treasurer's office and go into that fund for the lagoons. And then as we incurred bills for things about upgrades and different things like what we're talking about with this, those bills would be given to the clerk treasurer's office and they would pay them out of that donation fund.
Well,
Obviously, you can see there ain't, the last 3 years, ain't been any revenue.
well, and the donation fund is 217 on the key fund, and
There's also 260.
okay. Well, we don't have either one of those in Tyler. So if we get donations, they're not getting recorded on our system, and we don't, and I haven't reconciled those funds at all.
Yeah.
My question is, if we're gonna take a more active role in maintaining this, possibly getting grants and other funding, do we wanna mix that money in, whatever fund it goes into, USB, stormwater, sewer, whatever, or do we need to have a separate fund set up, non-generating, still transfer money out of stormwater to pay for the electric, obviously?
I would say
Or-
the simplest thing would be to set up a lagoon expense.
Which we have.
Stormwater.
We have that
And we have other income that's in the stormwater.
specifically in a revenue account.
Under the revenue account.
Okay.
Because it's very obvious that there's gonna be more expenses than there is income
Well, sure, right,
to get it going and everything else, and it belongs to the stormwater
right,
side of it.
right.
Since the
So we would-
Calpac line is what.
We'd still do just a transfer strictly from 626, but we can absolutely just set up separate expense accounts and separate revenue accounts.
My short answer is, I want a very clear accounting of all income and expenses, and you're the internal auditor. So
Right.
there's the answer.
Yeah, I think,
So what are we gonna do with the funds that the city currently has? About $2,300 that's been donated for lagoons.
is that what's in there now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't see that being used to repair the balcony. I think that's a in-kind project that Todd's people, the welder truck, and so forth. I think we can manage that without incurring expenses other than just labor, materials, people that are available when they're available. And meanwhile, we block it off. So we don't even know when we're opening yet. So we got some time there. I would like to see the donations going toward things that the users use and enjoy. Now, there's benches. We can talk about what those plans look like. I don't have the plans lined out on paper. But I'd rather think of the donations going to things that are very visible to the people that use the site. What those all are, I'm not sure. So
I like the bench, I think we matched that with another bench, right?
Yes, we did.
We could
And
do
that-
that.
No, we matched bench for bench out.
Yeah, but that was
Covered.
50-50. Out of the 50-50 fund,
Yeah, well,
we
yeah.
bought another bench to match the one
Right,
that was donated.
and that comes out of that one that's at the clerk's office.
Right.
So I think that's an entirely different kind of money.
yeah, I think donations, I would like to continue them through the clerk treasurer office. I think one of the arguments for that is the more recent ordinances at state level in terms of how we manage money for Coke machines and whatnot. I think it needs to be very well accounted for outside of our purview as far as donated money and expenses from that. So I think there's two groups of money. There's money we invest, there's money that the public donations invest. We keep those separate. But we can account for that with Andrew's help. So do we have a motion and a second, or where are we at here?
I think we had a motion and a second, and we're ready for a vote.
Any questions? Anybody
Any
has?
discussion?
I got a question.
Let's,
This is Jim.
let's refresh what the vote is about.
Thank you.
Ooh,
Did you guys hear me?
Yep,
About 5 years ago, we took stone out there and put in a driveway, and it came out that 50-50 money like Joe's talking about instead of stormwater. It came out of the money in the clerk's office. We had to send the bill through there.
For the stones, for the roads, but they seen that, right? That's
Well,
something an improvement they could see.
Well, and you know, I'm not wanting to change the world or make anything more complicated. I think whatever we've done in the past is fine. I want to keep it simple moving forward. I want to have donations visible to the public users. I want to have an accounting for what we purchase and the money and grants we receive that we apply for. That all has to be very much accounted for in a detailed fashion. I don't have to go fishing for it later, to use that term. So with that, we'll make sure with Andrew's help that we have everything set up. But I can show you what we do once we get that set up.
other discussion? Let's vote.
Rick Henning,
Abstain?
Joe Root,
Aye.
Mike Reeder,
Aye.
Kim Brewer,
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. So Rick, you have the liaison position of
Thank you, Joe.
SB
Thank you.
Lagoons. Do we want to, I think we need to have a decision made that if the rules that come out Friday allow for us to, how do we decide what makes it openable?
My opinion would be when the governor allows campgrounds and the parks and those things to be open. I classify that as recreational.
Do you want to make a statement, Annie, or do you want?
If you're willing. I do know that the release that the governor put out did say parks could open on the 24th, not campgrounds, but parks. So that's why the city of Frankfort parks are opening on the 24th, including all playground equipment.
See, it wasn't one of his original things was the parks and campgrounds on the 24th, and now they're changing their tune on campgrounds.
Nothing has been released changing that yet. So the city is going forward with the 24th unless something changes on Friday.
And I could almost ask the question, if we allow no overnight camping at this site, is it a campground or is it a park? Is it a recreation area?
It's a recreation area, just like Raccoon Lake's a recreation area. The campground's closed, you don't get close to there. You get one spot mushroom hunting, and that's it, one spot.
Let me ask General Manager Corey, is the date at which time our utility employees go back to their normal schedule related to this decision to open lagoons at all?
No, not at all, not at all.
Do you have a date picked for that event?
Not until our numbers, I mean, to me, I don't even think we need to discuss it until the numbers from the county start leveling off, but every day they just keep going up by 8 or 10. We just keep going up higher and higher here in the county. And we have one, so that you know, everybody knows, we have one person on quarantine right now as well.
Have you heard about the Parks Department?
No.
Street Department?
Street Department.
Street Department. I think they got 8.
On quarantine?
Yes.
Diagnosed?
One positive,
Positive? Okay.
rest of them will know tomorrow.
So we pretty much set tie at this point?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I say we have to because it'd be deadly if one person gets it electric and they're all there because.
Yeah.
I mean, who are we gonna have come in and do trouble?
The reason we did this in the first place, to make sure we have
Yeah.
continuing operations and our whole crew wasn't off. Yeah. Okay.
With that being said, do we want to put our employees that go to the lagoons to do maintenance or anything in jeopardy of people out there?
Well, let me speak to that this way. If the city employees are gonna pick up trash barrels at TPA Park,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we're in a much different situation than that, so.
They may not have very many by then.
They may not be able to.
Yeah.
It's not clear to me what the criteria are. I think it was the question, so I think,
Well, I have no problem, if it opens on the 24th, if that's what the governor's gonna do with it, it goes back to what Mike said. It also goes back to, the city law enforcement having to deal with it and anything else, being involved with it, Joe being involved with it. That place has been pain
Challenge.
Challenge is a good word, a challenge for numerous years for law enforcement people.
oh, yes.
Everything from.
Can I ask a question regarding this?
Everything else.
These temporary signage and the blocking off and everything, is that something that can get done before the 24th?
That's the liaison's question. We don't have any part in that on that, he just makes a recommendation.
That's, the answer is yes.
That's this Sunday.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
I guess one of the things is let's define this area. It is not a campground.
No,
It is not,
The dawn,
just
the dawn.
that's the dawn, but it's not a
Dawn
campground.
to dusk, you mean?
Dawn to dusk. Yeah, that's where all the problems come.
It is a recreational
It's a
area.
recreational area. Therefore, I really, I'd love to give it to the Parks Department, so I think we need to consider it like the park.
Well,
I don't consider it as a park. I won't consider it a park. I consider it as recreational. When you go to the park, you don't just sit down and throw a pole in the drinking fountain.
I consider it a stormwater retention area, and everything else is.
And so, you know, I mean, to me, it's recreational. So however the governor's thing is, recreational would be, you know, hell, you wanted to open it 3 weeks ago.
Well, I will press ahead and you will have tomorrow a list of proposed rules from me. And if you have disagreement with any of those, if you could kindly reply to me by email, we could talk about those. Once that list has been refined, the initial list of rules, I'll get busy arranging for a temporary sign. After Alicia looks at the rules, signs off on it.
I just have one recommendation, which is we put, kind of use at your own risk. Just because if a person does want to go there, knowing that there is the risk of COVID-19, that is their own decision, and we have provided adequate warning if we post that on a sign.
Yeah, that would be,
What is the downfall if we open them the 24th and the governor says that they have to stay closed? What if I think it's foolish to make a decision now without knowing the information.
We can't wait for 2 more weeks, though.
Why
Well,
not?
the decision's on Friday, right, the governor? And the 24th is Sunday. So you can say contingent on him keeping it open.
I guess I would ask Mike, what is the ramifications if we open it or if we don't open it?
Yeah.
We still have the porta pots out there.
no,
They're not there?
I'll use the phrase, the latrines have been retrieved. They're at the wastewater treatment plant.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
See, that's one of the stipulations down at Raccoon. There is no latrines down there that's available to the public.
And
They're all closed.
That's our current situation. What we have is a couple of storm shelters with roofs open on 4 sides, and if I'm not mistaken, a couple of picnic tables. So it might be advisable to remove the picnic tables temporarily, open it for fishing. I would support opening on the 24th unless the governor announces a delay in opening recreational areas. That's where I'm at.
And I can go with that on recreational. It's not a park. I won't go with it as a park. It's recreation. To me, that's recreation.
That's where I sit.
Are you making that a motion?
So I'm gonna make a motion that the board approve the opening of lagoons for normal activities as of 8 a.m. May 24th, with the exception if the governor extends the opening of recreational areas beyond that date, then we abide by the governor's announcement. And in doing that, we would remove any picnic tables that are in the area. Otherwise, it's as usual. That's my motion.
A second?
I'll second that.
Okay, second. Andy, what about the tables at the park? Are they gonna be able to be used?
Yeah, the Parks Department is sanitizing, spraying down all equipment, I believe on the 22nd. And then posting signs saying that things have been cleaned and will not be continually cleaned, and so use it at your own risk.
I'm gonna just say, I'd like to see ours pulled out because I don't wanna commit our people going over there and cleaning them.
No, not at all. I agree with Rick on taking them out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got enough to take care of,
Correct.
and actually maintenance and that over there is a secondary function for our employees. That's,
We're half-staffed.
Yeah,
And-
we can't afford to take our people out there and put them in harm's way, to
right,
open something up for bird watching or fishing, and then we lose them, we might lose half the crew.
right, and I think people are more apt to be upset with us if they can't flush their stools.
Oh, yeah.
Than they are
Or
if
if they
they
can't turn
can't
the
find
water.
a latrine at the fishing pond.
Right.
So, any more discussion of this topic?
Rick, we put on there, they have to wear a mask.
I will not. The governor has recommended that. And has recommended social distancing be respected.
All
I'm with
right,
the governor on both those topics.
since we, Bill killed this with conversation, we're ready for a vote, Andrew.
Joe Root,
Aye.
Mike Reeder,
Aye.
Rick Gunyon,
I
Kim Brewer,
Aye.
Mike Kelly.
Aye. So,
want to thank the board members for your confidence. Thank you.
Job ain't done yet.
We'll be talking.
we'll be questioning your
Please do.
competence here after this.
Sanity.
Yes, Andrew.
We're saying-
I just have one quick thing before you guys close. I know it's been a long meeting, but this is National Public Works Week. And on behalf of Mayor Sheets and the city, we would like to thank the USB and all of your departments, the sewer, waterworks, wastewater, electric utility, for the work you do for the city. I know a lot of times you guys don't get a lot of recognition, but we recognize you and we thank you.
We didn't, thank you, Annie, and you're one of those public workers too, and we appreciate everything you do for us. We didn't, is there any new business that we need to discuss?
I will say that we had a meeting today of the insurance committee. There's a couple recommendations that are gonna be going to the city council. One in there is gonna be that, the makeup of the committee be changed, adding the, clerk treasurer on there, and one employee from the city, and one employee from the utilities. The people that will be added will be done through an election. That's what we have in the past. Everybody will get anyone who wants to volunteer for it, and there'll be a vote taken probably, I don't know, depends on how long it takes the city council to pass it, so that they can come on board.
Okay. I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
10 seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd, I need to see you.
So you want to end it, you can- but it's already